The views and opinions expressed by the guests of Sasquatch Experience do not necessarily reflect the opinion of the hosts, sponsors, or affiliates of the Sasquatch Experience. As always, listener discretion is advised.
911, what are you reporting?
We got someone or something crawling around out here.
Does a legend walk among us, lurking in the forests of our world?
Did you see what it was? Was it a person or an animal or?
I can't tell. All I know is that my central light came on and I just happened to glimpse and see this thing running across the yard. A good-sized man or something. Looks like a man. I don't know what it was.
For over 15 years, we've talked with scientists, researchers, investigators, and witnesses, trying to gain insight and proof around the existence of this mysterious entity.
Jesus Christ, you better...
Sure.
Zia!
Hello?
Get somebody out here.
What's going on now, sir?
That son of a bitch is about 6'9", I don't know.
Do you see him now, sir?
Yes, I'm looking right at him.
Uh-oh. Okay, hang on.
He's right...
Is he in your yard, sir?
Yeah, God, he's big.
Okay, what's he doing in your yard?
He's looking at me.
Join us as we continue into the investigation of the Sasquatch Experience. With Henry May. And good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Sasquatch Experience for Monday, February 26, 2024. I'm Sean Forker. That's Henry May. James Baker, Vance Nesbitt, Matt Arner will be joining us momentarily. And behind the scenes, we have our executive producer, Brian Corbin, poking us with a pitchfork. So it's great to be here tonight, guys. Everybody intact. And I don't mean that from a genitalic sense. I mean, we're all intact and ready to have a good show here tonight. Last week we did episode 95 and we talked about the Pit Lake Giant. And Vance, unfortunately you had some technical difficulties. Did you have any input you wanted to throw in there quick before we move forward?
Sure.
About that.
Pull up my old notes, but yeah, I did. I was always fascinated with the fact of Leif Erikson, the Viking that settled this new land of what we now know as the United States, and it was journaled that they were met by these giants along the shoreline. And I didn't go any further with that. I just took that's completely fascinating. Now I'm going back 20 years ago from hearing that. A little few changes once you do a little bit of research into that. First off, Leif Erikson would have been 15 to 16 years old at the time. I don't see that being old enough to be a Viking leader to the new land, but this happened in 980.
No, he wouldn't even be tried as an adult.
Yeah, well, this happened in 986 AD. In the 13th century, which was 270 years later, that's when the documentation of his arrival to this land, 270 years, that's a damn long, that's longer than the United States has been a country. Scalinger, I'm trying to pronounce that, in the best Gaelic way I can, is
Don't hurt yourself.
Term, yeah, I'll try not to, was the term used by Leif Erikson for these creatures. But Scalinger also meant a little person, kind of like an Ewok, right? So there's a lot of things that just didn't make a whole lot of sense of his coming to the new land and seeing these giants meeting him along the shoreline. I think that may have been embellished. That's just a brief of synopsis of the giants topic that we were going to talk about last week. So anyway.
No, I'm sorry we missed you because we could have used the extra context. I think it was a show that we planned to do well and turned up to be just a little bit of a stinker. Not not too bad. Definitely wasn't one of our finest hours with all the
Thanks,
issues we
technology.
had.
You know, right?
Yeah, technology was a real bitch for us last week. It really was. We had to rely off a cellular connection and all kinds of things. So we apologize. It wasn't your usual.
Yeah. Well, the squirrel broke its
brand of
leg in the
goodness.
cage that powers up the sun, so it was just one thing after
It
another.
was something. But anyhow, we tried, and the podcast quality was pretty nice. It was remastered very well. But I know Matt and I tried to put a little bit extra effort into it. It was an error of follies that was out of our control. But it's a new week and it's a good show. Welcome, Matt. Good to see you. Buddy.
Thank you.
Hey.
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 Nice to have the whole team here. It's different. Everybody ready to go. But any news, Henry, from the week that we've missed? Anything going on in the Bigfoot world, other podcasts, what have you? What do you got for us?
Well, a few that I've been paying attention to. Let's see. Sasquatch Secrets is Nikki Cologne, and of course, Squatch Detective Steve Coles.
Sure.
Been following them. Watched a few of their past episodes.
Okay. How was the Dr. Meldrum episode? I missed that one. I wanted to take a look, and I didn't get.
Oh, it was great. It was really great. I thought that Dr. Meldrum did a terrific job, and Steve and Chris did a great job interviewing him.
Yeah, good guys. Chris Bennett and Steve Coles. We're going to get them on the program here in a few weeks to join us, to get some guests back on the program. We like the topical shows, but sometimes we like to talk to other people. Next week, there will not be a show. It'll be a night off for the guys. I'll be joining Billy Willard over on Sasquatch Watch Radio. So we'll try to do a little bit of a simulcast there if Billy's fine with that. Help get the word back that Sasquatch Watch Radio is on the air. So anything I can do to help my friends, you guys know I like to jump in and help where I can. It's important that the multitude of voices get shared because this is a field where the opinions matter. And especially when you have such, I don't want to use the term legacy. I think legacy gets overplayed, but you have such experienced researchers that really want to partake in that and get back into the field and get going. Billy is just a tremendous asset to the research community. He's a good friend. And you'll hear from next week. I was actually on the phone with his sons the night they had their Bigfoot encounter in Quantico. So it was quite a unique experience that he and I shared, and it's going to be a good show.
And what's the terminology that we use for all of? Oh, that's right, cross-pollination.
Cross-pollinating, yeah. Well, it never hurts.
No, it doesn't.
Never hurts. Baker, what do you got for us? You got anything going on?
The internet's working, and for me, that's a good thing. What?
Your first episode of Hot Takes is on the Patreon.
Yeah, I got a lot more rant in me. I just have to make sure I don't swear as much. I had some deer incidents the other day that me and Sean almost took out Bambi's mother, Bambi's father.
Oh,
man.
Yeah.
Shoot.
So we'll preface this as we're driving down a back road, okay?
Cemetery
and all of a
road.
sudden, these people are flashing lights at us, and we don't understand why they're flashing their headlights. Like, our headlights aren't out. We know what the hell's going on. He's flashing the headlights.
Not that drunk.
No sooner do we, we're asking, why the hell are they flashing their damn lights at us? And I'm like, Baker, deer. He's like, huh? Deer. We literally missed them somehow by less than a foot from taking out probably 4 deer in front of us.
Oh my God.
Oh my goodness.
It was quite outstanding how it happened. So when people are driving towards you, flashing their lights, just assume there's a reason and just be cognizant as why.
Yeah, it's not always gang signs.
Matt, is there a protocol or something to alert another driver of oncoming deer?
I mean, it's generally well known that you flash the lights to it's allowable per state law to inform the other driver of a possible hazard, which
Okay.
I would say a deer in the roadway would be a hazard,
Sure.
Yeah, well, hell yeah.
especially
know.
if they don't have insurance.
I know I might have needed new pants.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that was quite a.
Well, where
Not
I'm
Bigfoot
from,
related.
when they flash the brights at you, it's because there's an officer sitting up ahead clocking you for
Yeah.
speed.
Yeah.
Well, that
the bear
too.
warning.
If there's no hazard and there's an officer sitting there, technically that's a violation.
Oh, it is.
Well, there you
No,
go.
it is
See,
here
folks,
anyway.
so
oh yeah, it is
here at the
here.
Sasquatch Experience, we inform and educate about the
Correct.
law and other things in your life. So don't
Correct.
be flashing your lights because you're bored.
Right.
Now, if you want to flash those, I mean, what?
Oh,
Whoa!
He went there.
Oh.
He went there.
That's a whole different kind of
yes.
experience. That
And I might fill my pants.
Oh no.
How did we start the
God.
show? The views and opinions.
Yeah,
Okay.
the views and opinions of our hosts
Yes.
do not reflect. But he's got his first episodes on the Patreon for the hot takes, of course, folks, which you can join for as little as $2 a month. $2 a month, you can help support this and bring great shows to you. What do we do with the money? Well, we don't go to adult clubs. We use the money to put back into the programming. We really do. And sometimes you may not see it, but trust me, it's there. So we appreciate it.
Hot Wings
And
Tuesday.
Of course, we also got. He's in
we
rare
just
form tonight.
derailed.
Oh,
And our Sasquatch Experience T-shirts are also available. You can go to our Squatch Pro Shop on Sasquatch Experience and buy some gear. The old classic logo, different show logos, and we'll have the new one put up at some point in the next week or two. So that's all the shameless shilling I got. Tonight's program's pretty simple. It was Vance's idea, which was the evidence that matters to us. What's the convincing point that to each and every one of us that states that this creature is unequivocally real? And I think it's really important that we're all able to express that in some way, shape, or form. And to me, I always go first, so I want to go last on this round. But we'll start off with Henry. We'll start with you, and then we'll dialogue about it, and then maybe we'll get some interaction from the chat room too. We got some great folks in the chat room tonight. Our good friend Joe Stewart over on YouTube. Jenny, we all love Jenny. She's out there on the Facebook. Henry May's out there flirting with the ladies, and James Baker telling Vance he's so Gaelic. But we've got a bunch of you out there listening. We got a couple on X, listeners on Twitch. We got people on Facebook, and we got them on YouTube. So we're glad you're just listening to us here tonight. So go ahead, Henry. Henry, when it comes to the evidence, what's the evidence that matters to you the most?
My sighting. That's what
Okay.
matters to me the most. But the Patterson-Gimlin film is second, where that's concerned. Then the footprint casts. In that order.
Interesting. So your sighting happened when, Henry?
1998.
1998. Now, did the subject of your sighting match the subject in the Patterson-Gimlin film and build, or was it different?
The build was the same, and it walked the same as well. Like a cross-country skier walking across the highway.
Interesting. How long was your sighting?
That glide, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, the glide, exactly.
the Velcro.
It lasted a grand total of 15 seconds.
15 seconds. No jokes, Baker.
What?
Was it a roadside crossing, Henry?
Yes, it was a roadside crossing.
Interesting. Any questions for Henry, guys, about his evidence?
No, it's fascinating, actually. Me personally, I have not seen anything like that, but to have seen it, that's life altering. It changes your perspective about everything.
Well, it really does. And I think, importantly enough, Henry, though, you and I have done this a long time. And have you? I don't want to say flip flop, but have you changed your opinion over the years on the Patterson film with its validity? Have you been like, man, it's the real deal? And then have you been like, man, I just don't know if I can buy this?
Oh, I'm 70-30 on it. 70% that it shows an actual Sasquatch.
So
Go ahead, Bake.
I'm frozen.
Nope, you're good.
Oh.
We got you.
Oh, okay. My face is just not moving. So, you said a lot about the castings. Have you ever? I always look at a lot of the castings and like, I've never really seen horrible castings. Have you guys seen any that are like blatantly, minus the one me and Forker made out in the woods, that are blatantly like, there's no way that this was created by a Sasquatch. It has to be because like. I remember years ago it was with Josh Gates, and he was out in I think it was the Yucatan or something, and he takes this cast, and he does all these things, and I like Josh the way Josh does stuff, but you could tell there's a production value. But as he's getting to the airport, they seize the cast because he's not allowed to take an artifact from that country into another area. It was all very convenient, but like when you looked at the cast, it was like another animal slipped, and then it kind of looked like a large cast. But like from the years of going to events, and we used to hang out with Eric Altman, and he had like 20 different casts, and a variety of the other people that had casts. I've never really seen anybody like bring me a cast that goes. Even the one Vance, I think you showed me during Mothman, like there was never really a cast I saw that was like, this is completely. This is like I said, even the one me and Forker made was kind of like people are like, we want to buy this as a authentic cast. I'm like, dude, I made that in a woods to prove we could do it, and we even wrote on it, so we didn't lie,
Right.
But like, have you seen Henry? Have you seen any castings that really just stuck out to you? Going, yeah, they were in the backyard putting their foot in the mud,
Well, there was one that Dr. Meldrum examined on on Monster Quest, which didn't look right. And he even pointed out, he said, this looks like it may be most likely made by a human rather than by a hairy biped.
Was this the dermal ridges thing? Because I know that from talking to Meldrum many times, that's one of his big, like, look, you can tell how the internals. I have a whole conversation about eating hamburgers with him and having to yell at somebody because I wanted to talk about feet. Like, dude, I'm eating a burger. Let it go. Nicest man you could ever meet.
Mm-hmm.
Baker, you make a good point though about a lot of people not seeing casts that are awful, but I think now with so many people posting these photographs on the internet, if you caught one the other day, I think it was just yesterday, somebody posted a photo that clearly was nothing but bullshit. And Dr. Meldrum, they tried to say it was a juvenile Sasquatch, female juvenile, and give some like half-assed excuse about why it looks the way it does and how it is. And Meldrum just gets it on there and he goes, this isn't a Bigfoot. And then the people start, kind of turning against Meldrum. Like, no, it's not a Bigfoot. Like, and he's a smart enough man to know when to back away from the conversation because you can't win with a group of idiots that are convinced it is what it is. And it wasn't a Sasquatch print. Matt, you and I looked at some photographs not long ago where within probably 5 minutes, you and I both determined it wasn't a Bigfoot. It was bear prints.
Yep.
So, I mean, you can elaborate on that a little bit. You've done probably more footprint examinings than I have.
Yeah, and I mean, I go into, I'm do not just footprints, but also shoe prints as well as animal tracks. I've been out in the outdoors since I was a little kid, and that was one thing that I always was tried to keep up on. I won't call myself an expert at it, but I do try to keep pretty cognizant of different animal tracks, how to identify them, anything that I can read from them in terms of direction of travel, size, anything like that. But particularly with these some of these tracks, bear prints. If you have a bear that slides, if it's a muddy area, muddy areas give you the best prints.
Mm-hmm.
But if you have a bear that slides, that's going to look just like a Bigfoot print. If you have a bear that because they're four-legged and it steps into the track of its front paws, it's going to look like a 15, 16-inch print. But there are certain things that you have to watch for. The biggest thing is where's the big toe on a person versus the big toe on a bear. So it's our big toes are always on the inside. For bears, the bigger toes are always on the outside. So you look at something like that.
Interesting.
Yes, and there's some other items that you can kind of see when you do that. It's kind of sad because I remember one print and I said, "Oh my God, this is a great print." And Sean was actually out with us when we did it, but it was a horrible, horrible time. It was during the Shades of Death march. So I actually, before we hit the creek, there was a small campsite, a small makeshift campsite, and there was probably an area where an excavator had come through and had dug out an area, I guess, leading to the stream, and lo and behold, there was a beautiful print. You could see toes. You could see it didn't have that human look to it, and it didn't have that bear look to it. It looked like something that but of course that was how many years ago, and quite frankly, we thought we were going to die on that day. But
well, those poor fat people never had friends.
But again, going back to the tracks, there's a lot of tracks that we see that they just you look at them and you can kind of sit there and say, okay, this is definitely a human track. This is definitely a bear that slid. But then there have been quite a few tracks I saw that really have been confounded as to whether first how it got there, how it was made, and there's also other ways to tell if it was made by if it was faked. People sit there and try to dig out a print. That's real easy to pick up. There's a way that the soil impacts when a foot is struck on there. So I don't want to bore you guys, but
it's interesting.
No, it's
that
interesting.
You brought up that print, because you're right. It was an unfortunate series of events that weekend that it kind of got, what you could say, lost in whatever. But we did try to cast it, if I remember. I think Joe Biello tried to cast that print, Matt.
Yeah.
But it was probably one of the better prints we've found out in the time we've been doing this. And honestly, I am one of the worst people to try to do prints with or pass prints off, because I don't think any of them are real. I have a hard. I'm always thinking, and Matt, from being with me, I'm always looking for something to blame it on before I can say it's. And 9 times out of 10, I'm right.
Yep.
There's that once in a while where I'm just really not certain. But when you've looked at these enough, you start to be able to just right out of the gate know if they're too perfect.
Yes.
Yeah,
They're probably fake.
Yeah.
And Henry, this is where I was going to throw it back to you when Baker asked if there were any footprint casts that you thought were just the Ray Wallace prints. The ones that his family toted was the ones he was stomping around making there's no way those were the footprints. No way.
Is that the old guy from Harry and the Hendersons?
No, that was Don Amici. But Henry, you know what I'm talking about. You can elaborate on that a little bit.
Yes, I do. Well, now I'm actually the opposite of you, Sean. I'm actually convinced that some of the Ray Wallace did hoax some of them, I think, but not
Oh,
all.
I don't detest that at all. I just think that the photographs that you see with Ray Wallace holding up those big ass, shoes or print stampers that he made, very few of them represent any Bigfoot tracks that have ever been presented as real Bigfoot prints.
Mhm.
They don't match any of that. And if they did,
Right,
we'd all probably be smart enough to say they were fake.
right.
But you can go, if we want to continue down the line on prints, you talk about the Bosberg prints with the crooked foot, cripple foot, that Grover Krantz was part of the logic behind him believing this was a real creature. Still there, Henry?
Yeah, I'm here. Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No.
exactly. I mean,
Pardon me.
but only thing is, my only concern with the Bosberg prints is the whole thing with Ivan Marks kind of hovering around all that.
Right. And the problem is, as we start to go into some of those, that's when, again, I'll put a comment from one of our listeners here. As soon as I can find it again, you have to exercise your own discernment and deductive reasoning. If somebody's a hoaxer, 9 times out of 10, they're going to do it again, right? That was the problem with Ivan Marks. But do we throw everything? And look, people are having this conversation right now, to this day, about Todd Standing, right? Do you throw everything the person threw away because they've, hoaxed footprints?
Yeah.
Or they've hoaxed other evidence? Does that mean everything they've ever done has been
It's got a
invalid?
smell of taint to it.
Well, it
you
makes
know?
it shady,
Yeah, exactly. It is.
and it makes it that did they just make this up? It's like the Georgia Boys and Tom Biscardi. Like he was a big name. He was one I recognized when I didn't recognize anybody's name. And then that happened, and like everybody, I mean, national news and everything were saying this has got to be it, and this multimillionaire is back in this, and da da da. And then as the story progressed, it was like, okay, P.T. Barnum and some rednecks in a truck just lied to us,
Right.
And so anything he discovered beforehand or afterwards to me is tainted, because how many other rednecks in a truck did he find?
Well, I would challenge the fact that he's actually found anything. I don't
Right.
know if Mr. TB has added anything of value to the Bigfoot community besides just more strife and contention. And a perverse love for apple Snapple, or Diet Peach Snapple. Is, honestly, what has he contributed?
It is some
besides
fine
morons
Snapple.
from those morons from Georgia, and not Jeff Thomas. We love Jeff Thomas, our good friend Jeff. Not that guy from Georgia. But I mean, as we go down through this list, we've just had a whole little dissertation here on footprints, and thank you, Matt, for adding onto that conversation. But I think so much of this tends to be built around things like the Patterson film. But Henry, what else? Do you have anything else you wanted to throw at us there about your evidence that matters to you?
Well, I wanted to talk about a little bit about the Cripplefoot casts.
Okay.
I mean,
I'll
they
throw
look
that up
good, especially the one that is crippled. It looks good. And of course, Grover Krantz that was what shifted him from 10% to 100% belief in Sasquatch.
Well, you think about it, it would make sense that if you're going to have footprints over time, you'd have abnormalities or defects. It happens. And you're talking about a breeding pool that's probably not that significant. So you're going to have more of those opportunities for
Deformities,
genetic
right.
deformities, right? Now, with that being said, I'm surprised that over the years we haven't seen more, and that really Bosberg's the only example we have of a physical cast of that. Are there other deformed footprints out there, Henry?
From what I
Yeah, right.
understand, there aren't any that I've heard about, but from what I've heard, the Cripplefoot casts, the Cripplefoot tracks have actually been found in more than one place in Washington State.
Okay, they're just not, put out there for
No.
public consumption. Folks, it is 9:30. We're going to go ahead and take our little news break. You're listening to the Sasquatch Experience. I'm Sean Forker. That's Henry May, James Baker, Vance Nesbitt, Matt Arner. Of course, you can go and check out all our wares at our Sasquatch Pro Shop. You go to the website, SasquatchExperience.com, Sasquatch Pro Shop, and buy things like your Sasquatch Experience t-shirts and also your special edition co-host mug. And, of course, you could always promote the show by becoming one of our Patreon supporters for as little as $2 a month. So, folks, stick around. We'll be right back. We'll catch you on the flip
On
side.
a rerun.
And a rerun on the Bullhorn.
News team, assemble!
Ah, yes, bringing a little bit of amusement and seriousness right to your ears. A happy Monday night to you, or whatever night it is that you're choosing to listen to this, or even during the daylight hours. This is the Bigfoot Bullhorn, right here on the Sasquatch Experience. Yes, from Newsweek, it's coming true, people. From Newsweek magazine from 4 days ago, we are bringing the woolly mammoth back to life. We could have populations of mammoth that help to replenish the ecosystem and add biodiversity, making it as vibrant as it used to be. There have been some great published papers in the last year on what the mammoth steppe used to look and feel like, including its lost rich biodiversity. Fixing the degraded ecosystem with mammoths would create a halo effect over a long period of time. Moreover, we can help build a lineage of elephants that are far removed from human-elephant conflict, while developing tools to save existing baby elephants from EEHV disease. De-extincting the woolly mammoth is a great keystone project. It's hard because they have a 22-month gestation period. But unless a lot more efforts go into the elephant conservation, then at some point we're going to lose them as a species as well. From the perspective of science, you couldn't have a better focus for your study. To explore the phenotypic traits and investigate what makes similar species so alike, but also so different that they can inhabit completely different ecosystems. Elephants and mammoths are ideal for this. Untangling the genomics of mammoths and working on their reproductive biology is thrilling. The irony is that despite their familiarity, we know very little about their foundational biology, and so we're building that up, starting with actual genomes. We are accumulating one of the largest repositories of Asian and African elephant genomes and beyond, and adding in all the ancient genomes from the same lineage. We're super excited about all of the secrets that will be unraveled when we look deeper. The article goes on to say, every day we see this enthusiasm. Moms send emails to say they're so excited about our mammoth project because their children are enthralled by what we are doing, and they're asking, where can they learn more? We get teachers even asking for curriculum for their classrooms. We try to push a lot of content out there for people, and we're working on a docuseries about the project, and we hope that over time we can bring more exposure to the world's conservation crisis. But outside of the benefits to the planet, it's also just cool, and it's fun, and it's an inspiring thing to be doing. What could possibly go wrong? Somebody get Jeff Goldblum on the phone. Imagine when Sasquatch realizes it's no longer the tallest hair-covered creature walking on the planet. He'd be pissed off. When we come back, let's find out what might happen when you cross a Bigfoot with an extraterrestrial.
You're listening to the Bigfoot Bullhorn right here on the Sasquatch Experience.
This portion of the show is being brought to you by Ed's Almost Good Beer. Remember, Ed's Almost Good Beer was brewed in God's country when God wasn't looking.
Hello, I'm Vance Nesbitt, and you may know me from the hit show Sasquatch Experience. Now introducing a new fan-based store of original Sasquatch Experience merchandise, Squatch Pro Shop, offering quality-made and designed shirts from the classic prints to current prints. And now we're also offering the genuine Yeti Company Rambler travel mug with the custom-made Sasquatch Experience logo. Stop by now and buy one shirt for the price of two and receive the second shirt for absolutely free. Visit SasquatchExperience.com and go to Squatch Pro Shop. Thank you. All right, so where would you go to cross a Bigfoot with an extraterrestrial? Well, you might want to go to the Penn, Ohio Paranormal Conference. It is March 30th of this year. It starts at 10 a.m. and goes till 6 p.m. This is the second Penn, Ohio Paranormal Conference, and the Master of Ceremonies is Mike Hartman. Some of the speakers will be Jim Boardwine, Robert Solomon, Dave and Corey Rupert, and Christine Solstice. The location is at Hickory VFW in Hermitage, Pennsylvania. And also remember, we are in a serious blood shortage, so if you can donate, donations are needed for blood and platelets. Just go to theamericanredcross.org and you'll learn more information because we are at a crisis level. Thanks again for listening to this edition of the Bigfoot Bullhorn right here on the Sasquatch Experience. And of course, as always,
keep your toes in the mud.
Thank you, Vance, for the Bigfoot Bullhorn. And you and your muddy toes can go enjoy. A couple of housekeeping notes. A couple things have changed since that announcement. It's the Penn, Ohio Conference. Amy Boo is now the MC for the event.
Amy Boo.
And Corey Rupert has now become Carrie Rupert. And David Carey will be joining us as the Paranormal Griddlers for the show. So we're all good. Everybody's happy. Everybody's who they're supposed to be. And we'll have all those corrections made on the next episode, just in case anybody kind of caught that. But Amy Boo is now the MC. But Vance, thank you so much for that. Jeff Goldblum's going to enjoy the royalty check. And we press on to tonight's topic. The evidence that matters. We've heard from Henry. We've kind of heard from Baker. Baker, what do you got for us? And in the Cliff Note version of evidence that matters to you, what you got?
The evidence that matters to me would be live testimony from people who've seen something. Anything before 1970, because there wasn't a lot of people, a lot of the stories match up without them having conversations on the internet first. A lot of the stories from the ancient peoples and drawings and stuff like that, like the same with the ancient alien stuff and a lot of stuff like that is just the artwork and some of that stuff. But that would be my evidence that would say it was a potential thing, because to me, those people were before, like I said, is there was no real reason to lie. A lot of them hid the fact they knew stuff. And you had people across the country saying, hey, it looked like this, and this, but they're like, they didn't have an internet. They could check what does a Bigfoot look like,
It's funny because information took so much longer to pass around. Like it was, the telephone game wasn't quite as elaborate then, and you didn't have the internet. But stories you said 1970 before that, pre-Patty, right? Did you think in your mind that the image of the Patterson film contaminated a lot of what people see, James?
I think that it made it a brand more than, a concept. But at the same time, if you think about it, like all the pictures of the grass man and all the Native Americans, they had their totems of different things and stuff like that. Like, I always believe that in the beginning, Sasquatch and a lot of the cryptids were kind of like conversations you had, between a couple of people that had either been drinking a little bit and let go a little, or it was just kind of like, hey, I did you see that? And we saw that. And then they only talked amongst themselves about it, compared to today now that it's like a regular fireside chat. Hey, we're gonna, like, what's the word? I can't think of the phrase. Urban legends. I think that Bigfoot now is an urban legend because everybody wants to put in their little spin on it. It's hey, I saw Bigfoot in Detroit, and also I saw alligators, and now the Mothman's here, and then blah blah blah. And it's like, no, you can't have like 52 cryptids in a 20 block radius, otherwise they bump into each other and we have turf war. It's just where back then it was more of a hey, I saw something weird. Oh man, were you over near the blah 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 farm? And then they would have a conversation. But like each would contribute a new fact that the other one was like, yeah, that's what I saw. It wasn't like they had a description. Like when Patty came out, everybody's like, first it became a nationwide epidemic. We'll call it that. But secondly is there was a base character to say, hey, it's like when Harry and the Hendersons came out. Love the movie, but how many sightings popped up after that were like, they explained it. Oh yeah, that's Harry.
Well, and you say that, and to me, it's funny when you start looking at the sighting reports and how they changed. And as you go with William Rowe, and before that, it was more of an ape-like creature. Patty kind of, aside from the upright walking figure, still very apish. But then you go into things like Harry and the Hendersons, and what do you see? Well, Bigfoot becomes anthropomorphized. It becomes more human looking in the face. And now all of a sudden, Bigfoot's human. Bigfoot's a man. It's just a very big man. So, it's just a funny, like you bring that up, and it has changed and it has impacted. I think it's had a very strong impact on what people see. That turf war you talk about, kind of takes me to these stories today. We hear of the Bigfoot Dogman wars of, the biggest crock of bullshit I've heard in most of my life. And I have a real hard time with that. Really do, because it now takes away. You talk about how people are more comfortable talking about it. I think they were comfortable until all these things become associated and lumped into each other once again. And now, if you're a person who's in a very professional field and you look and they find out you look for Bigfoot, here comes the Snickers again, a little bit. So I don't know. So I think what you said has a lot of merit, and I think you've made some good points there.
I want to elaborate, though, on something that James said was you have the post-internet sightings, the pre-internet days. And I'm just kind of, for some of us that are a little older, we didn't have Snapchat. We didn't have Facebook. We didn't have Twitter. We didn't have our texting groups. So what you did on a Friday night or a Saturday night, especially if you lived out in the middle of nowhere, was you probably got a 6-pack of beer and, with your buddies, and we're driving around, the woods, because you're not going to drive into town like that. But, so these kids, we used to have, parties up in the, well, we call them bush parties. Taking beer up the mountain and everyone sitting around a campfire.
Right.
That was your version of Facebook or Snapchat back then. So these kids are going out in the woods, going out to places, and then they see something and they're like, oh my God, well, I was out drinking, or, oh, we were, out till 2-3 o'clock in the morning and my parents aren't supposed to know,
Yeah.
but that was kind of the thing back then, especially in the 70s and the 80s.
Yeah, that's a great point, Matt.
Yep.
I mean, and I think still, even in my youth, that was still kind of the thing to do because social media hadn't really taken off.
Yep.
At that point, you make really valid points, and you hid things so you didn't get in trouble.
Yes.
So you were allowed to go to the next one. I think again, you kind of add a little bit more validity to some of the things Baker said. I like the ancient reports and people, the art. I think as you learn art and learn about culture, how significant that really is. And the witness testimony, I think it's something we're all going to have in common as we go through. But for the sake of time, Vance, you're up next, buddy. What do you got for us?
Well, considering the title of this show is The Evidence That Matters to Us, so we're speaking about me at this point. Piggybacking off the cast prints, the footprints themselves, I have seen a plethora, including the majority of Dr. Meldrum's collection of the cast prints. But on the same level of intensity is the gait. I have seen so many videos and photographs of the gait and the distance between each step. And to me personally, that is very profound. A lot of them on average, and I'm not going into any science specifics in mathematics here, but on average, we are talking 4 feet between the toes of one print and the heel of the next print in line with each other. That's a huge stride. Now, I did my own experiment last Friday. We just had, a fresh 3/4 of an inch of snow. So I did an inline stride across my yard. And then I came back up the walkway, came in the house, grabbed the tape measure, and from my toe to the heel of my next step, on average, was 19 inches. And that was just trying to walk comfortably. I was not trying to make that 4-foot stride. I'm just as if I were walking through a wilderness, a wild land. Of course, I'm walking through a yard. 19 inches was my average stride. I'm 6 foot tall. So in order to get even close to 4 feet, you'd have to double my size to 12 feet in order to even come up at 38 inches for that stride. And we're talking 4 feet. Okay. You can do the math. So to me, that was very compelling evidence for the amount of photographs and videos that I have seen. Now, could you hoax it? I suppose you could. I suppose you could go out in the wilderness and in a very awkward terrain on stilts, but who's going through that? There's no physical evidence or photographs of somebody getting out of their car with a pair of stilts with, Bigfoot on the bottom of these stilts to go walk off into the wood and make these prints. Nobody's ever said anything like that. Well, what other choice would you have? You could probably have an 8-foot diameter wheel and put, a cast on opposite ends of that wheel and roll it. But then you're going to have a trackway of you either pushing it, and it's the depression into the ground. We're talking some weight that can create some of this impression into the ground. So I don't know how you could create that scene of that type of a gate. And to me personally, it's just as compelling as some of the cast prints that I've seen.
I think it would be more outrageous to find somebody pushing a large wheel with footprint casts going
Well,
through the woods
yeah, right.
than seeing a Bigfoot itself,
Mhm.
right? Like that would be
Who's
a pretty
seen that
remarkable
though?
thing.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. Well,
Who's seen
nobody has
somebody
seen
in a
it.
parking lot pulling either stilts out, and because that would be the first thing I'd do. I mean,
Mardi
my
Gras.
camera would be out snapping pictures of that immediately.
It's funny, I
By
said
far
that.
more than if I saw something that I didn't know what it was and considered it Bigfoot. I'd probably be in shock and wouldn't want to miss a moment and probably not take a picture of it. But if I saw that, yeah, I'm snapping a picture of that going, okay,
Right.
here's
I wanna
somebody going off
say-
to go create this.
It's funny you said stilts because that was the first thing I wrote down over here when you were talking about
Mhm.
replicating. And who the hell's really going to have the time and energy to do that? And
Assholes.
factor in terrain, you're putting yourself in some pretty interesting peril. You
Right.
could snap a leg real quick doing something stupid. So folks, those hoaxing, don't try that at home. If you break
No.
your leg, it's on you. And then we're going to kick the shit out of you for being an
And we'll
asshole.
leave you in the woods alone.
You're going to wish you had a broken leg.
And
No,
we'll take the
again,
stilts.
Vance, I think you've done a really good job there. One of the things, and Matt, because you're next, and I think is interesting, is none of us have really laid into some real video evidence. I mean, Henry said the PG film, but the rest of us haven't gone into any sort of kind of photo or video evidence. And then as Jamie writes here real quick, Matt, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
the
no
best
problem.
evidence is almost every First Peoples nations has a reference to Sasquatch type beings, physical and spirit. And I think that's again a tremendous point to make. Go ahead, Matt. I'm sorry.
I was going to go back and say, in terms of the video evidence, I'm actually the PG film. We can rank them. The PG film is obviously number one. I think it's about 99% that this is not a human. But then we also have other footage as well. And especially with the Michael Freeman footage, I think is very compelling. Even with the Memorial Day footage, and there was a few other clips out there. I'll have to try and track them down that I thought were pretty decent. But then on the other hand, too, we as researchers, we've been told about certain evidence. And I heard Cliff on his show talking about the there's game camera pictures from someone that they don't want people trudging through their property. They don't want to be known. They don't want to be famous. But then on the other hand, there's people that I've met and that are also fellow researchers that they just don't know what they have on their game cameras. They don't want to come right out and say, "Hey, this is a Bigfoot." It's still unidentifiable. I thought that there was one picture in particular that I thought it was kind of funny from the Olympic project, and this is going from way back. Probably about 10 years ago at least, and they had a game cameras that were up in the mountains there, and they had a picture of something looking down, kind of with its head turned. And the funniest thing that I thought was just the weirdest thing, it almost looked like it had a surfer's haircut because it kind of like went down, but it was not human. Yeah, it was not human. It was, but you know what? That's probably a West Coast Sasquatch. They're probably like,
man.
yeah. But anyways, there's pictures like that again, you can't say 100%. Okay, this is definitely an ape-like creature, but man, that, like I said, there are some game camera pics that are pretty compelling, and then again, there's other ones that we're either told about or other people have seen that said, hey, listen, the people just don't want to come out and make this public. And a lot of times I respect that. I just wish that they would give some of those allow some researchers to take a look at them, and not just researchers but maybe scientists as well.
And Dan says the best here. Some of the best Sasquatch evidence comes from those who don't speak on it or pour it out to the public.
Yep.
There's a lot of interesting secrets being kept out there, and that's incredibly true. And Matt,
Yes.
well, I've talked with Cliff in Ohio at the conference on the nights before where we can drink and be free. He's made that known to me before too. There's evidence out there that's never going to see the light of day because people
Correct.
don't want the hassle. And
Yep.
as we move into the information age where, and I commend people that try to put together these mapping projects like the Bigfoot mapping project. And you all know the reservations I have is that we don't infringe on the rights of personal property of people and, unintentionally put anybody in any kind of danger. Those folks don't want that hassle. And there is a reality where you could get somebody who's a little unhinged going out there locally trying to find Bigfoot sightings and end up in your backyard. You don't want that shit to happen. And that's the air of responsibility of having that. But that stuff's never going to see the light of day, mainly because people don't want the hassle or they don't want the potentiality of being hassled by some entity, local government, state government. Because look, if you start posting that kind of stuff and it's the real deal, who knows is going to come be knocking at your front door.
Correct. And again, there's a few researchers I know that do have stuff on game cameras, but again, they're just so they don't want to put it out there. They may not. It may be for that scrutinization as well. That somebody's going to look at it and say, "Oh, this was faked," or "This was a bear," or "This is something else," and with all the, and I talk about this all the time, all of the circumstantial evidence may lead it to it's not a bear or this hasn't been faked, but they just don't want to put it out there, and I respect their decisions. But at some point, we know that there's some game camera photos out there. It would be nice again for people, that are in the research or scientific community to look at those and review those.
In the mid-2000s, there was a farmer from Millville who came in on the PA Bigfoot Society website that said he had game camera photos that were compelling and he'd like to share them with us. Never got them. Never responded to any emails, never wanted to meet up, very evasive, and the lead is dead. And I hope, that gentleman may be still alive. I don't know. But if not, that information died with him. The same thing happened to a lady, South Williamsport. And actually in my book, I'll give folks a little preference, and Matt, you've probably read it in my book since you've been the only other person, as I talk about that thought of how many pictures may be on rolls of film undeveloped in drawers somewhere. Because it's a lost art. Who knows what's out there anymore, and we may never see that. So it's disappointing and frustrating, but alas, a real potentiality.
And then we look at other photos too that some people will say would be pareidolia. Where and again, I can the big thing on the internet is the red circles. Going everywhere. Yes. But there was one photo which I think is very compelling, which is the Beast of Seven Chutes.
Yeah, right.
Okay, and that was a photo that the guy wasn't taking a picture of a Bigfoot. He was taking a picture of a waterfall.
Right.
And 6 months later, somebody says, "Hey, what's that in the corner? That looks like a baboon carrying a dog." Yeah. And to me, that is photographically, I think that's one of the most compelling images for me.
But Matt, there was a great follow-up to that because an individual went to that specific location, set the camera up in the same, and was able to pretty much identify the height of this. This thing was huge.
Yes.
And there was nothing there that would have replicated that of being a pareidolia type of situation. There was nothing there. So clearly that photograph had something that is no longer there. And that picture creeps me out because it's kind of a huge baboon looking thing holding a dog.
Yes, I know.
Wow.
Now, we've talked about this on the show in the past. So in one of our archived episodes, I think it's Bigfoot on Video, one or two that we've done where we talk about that. I think it was is it the same as the Independence video or something? Is that
might
something
be.
different?
Yeah,
I think it may be the same figure, to be fair. I don't know. We'll go back and research it, and I'll post an update link and the show link when we go ahead and make this. But for the sake of time, anything else that you wanted to add to that, Matt? Because I think you made some, again,
No,
well.
Well,
now for me-
okay, let me wrap that up just to say real quick,
Wrap it.
Sean, what Matt's talking about, the 7 shoots photograph, that might be what is being confused as a Dogman too, and I'll just leave it at that.
Well, and we've talked about that in the past too.
Yep,
And
right.
we'll save that for another show because I don't want to
Yep.
get on the whole Dogman thing. Anyhow,
If people haven't seen them, you just look it up. You know the what's the title? The Beast of 7 Shoots, I believe.
Yeah.
And
Beast of 7
that's
Shoots.
Yep.
CHUTS, not
I don't.
shoot as in gun.
right.
Or other
Right.
things.
All right.
Yeah.
Or other
Stop
things,
it.
right.
Stop it. For the love of God. All right. Now for me, we'll wrap it up with the fat man. Number 1, the overwhelming amount of sighting reports. I think that there's no way that all these reports that have come in, everybody that has been batshit crazy, they've all managed to find their way onto an online forum and talk about the same thing, or many times coincidentally describing a creature that has been seen many places. I think the unknown audio documented, to folks through David Ellis and Stan Courtney. I think Stan Courtney is someone we often forget about now when we talk about Bigfoot audio, but his website, Stan Courtney, I think it's stancourtney.com. You can go check it out. And that has an overwhelming amount of files on there that you can go and check. I mean, it's really outstanding how much he has on there. David Ellis through the Olympic Project have really documented some things. And the last thing none of us brought up before is the unknown primate hair. All these hair samples that come back unknown primate, and the only thing we don't have to compare it to is what? A core sample, right? But over time, do you think you could not compare enough of these hair of unknown primates collectively and say, hey, we've got something here? One follicle, yes, but 100 follicles of different places that are the same thing, I don't know. That gets a little bit more difficult for me to invalidate. So that's if I had 3 things that I really kind of had a foundation on, and of course, my sighting of whatever I experienced out in Clearfield in 2012 changed my life forever, and most definitely, something I hold quite dear and profound, and you can check that out on one of our past episodes, The Incident on Rockton Mountain. Guys, anything you want to wrap this up with tonight? Any final thoughts, emotions, tender loving care moments?
Just thanks to everybody that came into the chat room tonight and is sharing their thoughts, and
Hell yeah.
it's greatly appreciated.
I hate to rush it through because we were having some good dialogue, but time is of the essence. As always, time is money. Henry, why don't you go ahead and take us out with that beautiful bean footage?
Beans.
Oh, he's muted. Go ahead. Try that again, Henry.
There it is.
Y'all be good or be good at it.
There it is.
And we'll see you not next week, but the week after. Good night, everybody.
2 weeks.
2 weeks.
You've been listening to Sasquatch Experience. Please rate and review where this podcast has been consumed. To share your experience, visit us on Facebook, our website, or email us info@sasquatchexperience.com. Keep on squatching.